Hello, everybody, for another episode here with Patsy and myself, Charles, of the Halfmoon podcast. Today, we are continuing with the saga of the eight immortals, which comprises actually hundreds or maybe thousands of stories. And Patsy's just taking a few of them that landed for her and that she's familiar with from her childhood. I want to say one thing for those of you who are familiar with some of these stories. Not all, like you could hear other stories or read other stories about the eight immortals, and they might not be consistent with each other or the ones that Patsy tells. But that's okay. We're not actually looking for a self-consistent narrative as if this is something that happened in objective reality. In fact, even the contradictory stories all contribute to fleshing out something that maybe eludes the understanding of the rational mind. And this is actually a feature of the Taoist thought that I became familiar with when I was in Taiwan. But more than that, it's a feature of many other systems of knowledge around the world, where you could have two alternate stories about the same deity, and no one's like, well, which one of those is true? No, they're both true, even if they contradict each other. And that kind of opens the door to levels of truth that defy our tidy ordering of the world. So anyway, with that, Patsy, I'll turn it over to you. What do we have today?
We have Lu Dongbing today. I
Don't
really
be.
appreciate, yeah, I really appreciate the synchronicity of your thought and how you introduced this, because that was how I was feeling. I was hoping that you would elude this point of in a lot of these Taoist stories, mythologies, characters remain the same. And there's a core structure remain the same, but the details it keep morph and change. So for me, I even pondered this myself as I was a child. When I received the first version of the story, I would believe that, oh, that's it. So when I was presented a new version, I became skeptical. Then I will move into an inner experience of deciding which one is right and true for me. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, and I'm also wondering if that's just my experience because I'm not a trained scholar, and I'm missing information. So I have to depend on the mercy of external resources to tell me what is true. Yeah.
Yeah. The same situation I was just thinking crops up in the West, also in the culture I grew up in. For example, say you're a Christian. Well, there are contradictions among the four Gospels and between the Gospels and the Old Testament, and so critics of religion, critics of Christianity might say, well, if you say the Bible is the inerrant word of God, but it contradicts itself, well, that doesn't make sense. It can't be. And, which one of these Jesus stories is true, if any, and you say you believe all of them. Well, like that doesn't make sense, right? Yeah, it kind of doesn't make sense from that perspective. But when you understand that truth is something bigger than the rational mind can order and put into its categories, then you realize that all of these different stories contribute to a truth beyond concepts. Because when you try to put it into concepts, you end up with paradoxes and contradictions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, that's why Tao is such a teaching of paradox. And interesting that you mentioned about contradictions. What makes Baxian, especially there's
The
two.
eight immortals, Baxian,
Oh, so
just
yeah,
for those who are,
immortal.
yeah.
Yeah, Han Zhongli and Li Dongbing, what makes them so adorable is because they teach through contradiction. Anyway, it satisfies a rebellious part of me to immerse myself in their story. So I want to start with Lu Dongbing, the third of the immortal. who is a student of the Han Zhongli, the second one. So I want to briefly talk about how they meet. And then I want to tell a story later on happened one after Liu Dongbing became an immortal, like his mischievousness. And so Liu Dongbing was a human, a normal human, a very intelligent, handsome human filled with bright future. And the whole village looked up to him to go to the Jingcheng, the capital, to pass a Jingcheng's exam, because that's an old system. Everybody have to study and pass an exam in order to be assigned a government post.
Yeah, this was a civil service exam system that dates back to the Han Dynasty, like 2,000 years ago. And if a village, in the countryside had a promising young man, as far as I know, women were not allowed to take the test, but that might not be true.
No, it is true.
It is true.
Women are not allowed to take the test.
Well, anyway, if you had a promising young man, who was very studious and very intelligent, like if he could go and pass the exams, he would be the pride of the village. So everybody's, has high hopes for this young man.
Yeah, so that was his direction. And one day, after he prepares a lot, he's on his way to take the exam. And the exam usually takes a course of days, So he took the exam, and it was very exerting work. At the end of the day, he was resting in an inn, and he ran into a raggy, weird-looking guy with shirts unbuttoned, exposing his belly with and a messy beard, and a two pigtail and a big palm tree leaf fan, and was challenging him, saying that, "Hey, do you want some company? Are you here trying to seek big fortune?" And then they began to talk. And then Liu Dongbing began to tell him about his great hope of becoming somebody through this path. And Han Zhongli said, "Oh, yeah? You want to come to my room and let me make you my special recipe of yellow millet. So that will surely help you pass the exam in a high score." So Liu Dongbing followed him to his room, and so Han Zhongli asked him to sit, and then Han Zhongli began to make his yellow millet. And then Liu Dongbing at that moment fell asleep, and he had a dream of his entire life by passing his exam, and how he got a good position, and how he immersed himself in this bureaucracy and the defined success by that entire system, and live a fulfilling life. And also there are dramas too, like how the corruption and such. And then he woke up minutes later, but he didn't know that it was minute. It was he dreamed this entire life. And Han Zhongli has this mischievous smile, say, "Okay, your yellow millet porridge is ready. Have some." And so from that moment on, Liu Dongbing was like feeling a bit like heavy or pondering this dream. And it's almost feel like, anyway, I don't want to interpret it. I wanted to
He feels uneasy though, but he still goes the next day to his exam. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. But somehow in the middle of the exam, he abandoned the exam. He walked out of the exam, basically, leaving it blank, because apparently he got something. And then he ran out to look for Han Zhongli and say, okay, he's abandoned a different path, and he's seeking a different path now. So that's how they met. Okay. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, and that really resonates the part that you walk out of the exam, because although, I'm not nearly as superior, I'm kind of like a very tiny, rebellious Taiwanese being who didn't have a lot of resources. I did a similar thing too. I walked out of a national exam, because I wanted to follow my boyfriend at the time. He was a student of an art college, art vocational school. I wanted to do that path, so I sort of resonate with that part that follow
Well,
your heart, don't follow the definition that
do you think you got the idea? Because you've told me that story before, how you turned in a blank test paper. You didn't
yeah.
want to take the test, if I remember the story, but your mother made you go take it anyway.
Yeah, my
So,
mother, the whole family, there's
yeah,
the pressure from the society to take the test because I already knew where I wanted to go, but there's no acknowledgement. And I was considered a black sheep, except I was admired by a couple of my cousins who didn't have the guts to rebel.
right.
They thought they were so envious of me.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you were like, well, you can make me sit in the exam hall, but you can't make me write down the answers. So you turned it
Yeah.
in, you got a 0 on the exam, I believe, right?
Yeah, what some of it, because some of the subject I was interested in. So I
Oh,
was
okay.
writing that exam because that subject interests me.
Uh-huh.
But for the most part, I really didn't want to have a proper score because if my score reaches a certain point, I would be assigned to school. And I know none of the school that I wanted to go to, because that school that I wanted to go to has their own private exam. So that's the
Yeah.
exam I wanted to take, not the
Yes.
national one. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So
yeah,
I
I'm
make
thinking,
sure I fell. So you don't make
right.
sure he fell.
Did you get that idea from this story?
I don't remember.
Uh,
I don't remember. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so now we're fast forwarding to uh Liu Dongbing is already an immortal
Yes. And I
and
also want to say a couple of things like relevant to his character. Um, Later on, I also learned, remember a couple episodes ago, I told you that Lao Tzu was deified as 太上老君, right?
Mhm.
And then 太上老君 was in many, many stories of the folklore, but I didn't make the connection until much, much later. So Liu Dongbing also has a official, like Taoist spiritual name.
Mhm.
And when he's in the temple, he's oftentimes seen as that name. Only people who really understand this know that, oh, Liu Dongbing and Chunyang Zushi are the same
Okay.
person. So Chunyang Zushi, I thought this name is really fascinating. Chunyang is pure yang.
Yeah.
Zushi is ancestral teacher.
Mhm.
It's like a respectful name for
Right.
a deity. And one of the teaching that Liu Dongbing taught through mischievous act and also challenged people's ideal. And one of his character was he loves sexuality, right?
Mhm.
And knowing that he represents a pure yang, of course, it's going to attract to the consummation within that compose the feeling of wholeness. So so one of his teaching is how to make the balance of the yin and yang through sexuality and through all sorts of activities. And so I wonder if the longevity of Tao through sexuality somehow came from this particular seed.
Well, let's maybe visit that question later. I want to hear
Yeah.
the story. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this particular story was one day the teacher and the student were back in heaven somewhere. Han Zhongli was teaching Liu Dongbing, and Liu Dongbing was bored. He's like, "Oh, I'm bored here. I gotta go to the world and find something to amuse myself and do a few good deeds while I'm at it." So he rolled a cloud and arrived at some random village. And he saw some clamoring by the river. So he went over there and discovered that there was a corpse, a drowned corpse, and then a bunch of people surrounding the corpse crying. So apparently the river was dangerous and the village expanded to the next, across the bank. So people need to go back and forth. And oftentimes there were accidents, both flipping and casualties. So Liu Dongbing said, why don't you guys just build a bridge and be done with it? And they say, oh, because there's no money, there's a lot of money to build a bridge across. So they all move on, and Liu Dongbing stay by a inn right by the river for the night. And when he got up in the morning, he heard another clamoring outside. So he looked out the window and he saw that there was a pretty boat with a beautiful young maiden standing in the middle of it. And her servant was holding a small gong and hitting the gong and calling out, attracting the crowd, saying that, come, 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 this beautiful maiden is finding a suitor. So throw your coin. If the coin can land on her, you will be able to have this beautiful maiden as your wife. That attract a lot of people, and then people would throw all kind of sizes of coin, and some were like big silver because it's easier to control. But no matter how close they were to the boat, nothing could hit the beautiful maiden, and it all fell on the boat.
It sounds like a good business to everyone's throwing their money into the boat.
Yeah, maybe I should go do that. But I'm not a young maiden. Anyway, it's really funny to have that picture. And in fact, I remember feeling very nervous about, whoa, what if like you have to marry someone who you don't know.
Yeah, someone gets lucky and some rude peasant gets lucky and now she has to marry him.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I was nervous about it for a bit. But anyway, this kind of trick or game was quite common. Sometimes for a poor family, they would do that for to acquire more money in order to marry their daughter. And Liu Dongbing was like watching that as an entertainment, but he realized that there's something fishy about this because so much money and so many people, and they keep going home to come and bring more.
And no one can hit her with a coin.
That's right. So Liu Dongbing used his magical sight to look through the illusion. It turns out this young, beautiful maiden was transfigured by Guan Shiyin. Guan Shiyin is
transfigured by her or was her?
It was her. She transfigured herself. And
so the Bodhisattva Guanyin is in disguise as a young maiden, soliciting suitors.
Right. And then the servant was one of her servant disciple called Hui An. So Liu Dongbing was like, why would Guan Shiyin wants to do that? She's looking for a suitor. And then he had a mischievous idea, like bubble up right then. So he thought, maybe I can help Guan Yin to find a good person to marry to, because those thoughts, they're obviously not sincere. So he spotted a young, handsome man also was standing in the balcony in the same building, but he's a worker there. And he obviously didn't have money, but he was looking with such an adoring face. So Liu Dongbing approached him and say, do you have a coin? And he said, yes, I do. I only have one copper coin. And he said, do you love that young maiden? And he said, oh, love, of course, I'll devote my whole life, my whole heart to serve her. She is so pure and beautiful, but I'm not worthy of her. Besides, I only have one coin and it's so far away. Look at those people. They were so close and they couldn't even get her. And Liu Dongbing say, well, if you vow for your wholehearted devotion to serve her, maybe you'll get lucky. And he said, well, wholehearted devotion is not a question at all. It just that I still feel like I'm like hopeless. And Liu Dongbing say, well, let the divine decide that. So now this young man was very encouraged. So he took out his coin and he just looked full-heartedly at the young maiden and threw. And that coin somehow was supported by a golden light, and it went straight and touched the Guan Yin's body. And Guan Yin was fully shocked by that. So she revealed her true identity. And at that moment, everybody was shocked. It was like, oh, wow, this is a Guan Yin. So they bowed and they kind of scurry away because it's just such a powerful being here doing this. But Guan Yin was not pleased. So he raised a cloud up to the sky and asked her disciple to summon Lu Dongbing. And Lu Dongbing came, and Guan Yin confronted him, said, why would you interfere with my affair? Did you know what I'm doing here? And he said, yeah, I know. You're trying to find a suitor. And so I help you by letting his heart to make sure that you won't end up with someone who is not good enough for you. I mean, obviously, Lu Bongbing, he's responding in that way, but he knew that, Guan Yin has other agenda, but he's just being mischievous, and he just would not apologize to the Guan Yin. And the Guan Yin said, reveal her agenda. She said, I was doing that to collect money so that villagers can build the bridge. And now you have just ruined it. So I'm going to order you to build a bridge. And you may not use magic to build the bridge. And then Guan Yin's position is much higher than Lu Dongbing. Lu Dongbing has to comply.
Right, because he's just, one of the 8 immortals, and she's the Bodhisattva, Guan Shi.
Right.
So
right.
he's in big trouble now.
Right. And he's ordered to complete the bridge in within 24 hours and not using magic. And there's it, that's the ultimatum. And then she left and leaving Hui An. Hui An is her disciple to supervise, to watch, to make sure that he
doesn't cheat, and yeah.
Right. And just then, Han Zhongli also arrived at the scene because Han Zhongli knew that Lu Dongbing skipped his lesson and he's probably doing some mischievous thing and causing trouble. So he came, but he came too late, and he learned all that. And it was like trying to encourage the student to get on with his work. And his students say, oh, don't worry, teacher. Let's go do some sightseeing and have some more drink and check out.
Encourage me to do his work. You mean to build the bridge?
Yeah, the build
the bridge.
Hurry
up, he's saying. And then he's like, no, let's, okay.
Yeah, take it easy, relax, you'll get done. And then time went by, evening sunsets, evening comes, and Han Zhongli was like, but it's dark now. How are you gonna see? Go do your work. Start building the bridge. And he's like, no, I'm tired. I'm gonna go to sleep. And then Han Zhongli was like, okay, it's your destiny, your business with Guan Shi. I'm gonna stay out of it. Let's go to sleep. So they both went to sleep. And then Hui An was like, wow, this guy is really, what's going on? So he woke him up, he poked him and said, hey, you don't want to offend Guan Shi. And then Lu Dongbing was like, hey, go away, let me take care of my life the way I want to take care of it. So he went to sleep. And Hui An was like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and watch. And so he fell asleep. He fell into a deep slumber and he began a dream. He dreamed of himself walking into the mountain, and he, what is it called? Past incarnation. He used spell and magic to make a lot of rock, became white sheep and walk. And he sing and lead those sheep to the river. And every one of the sheep jump into the river and become piece of the foundational rock, and a big bridge form. And by the dawn comes, there's a full bridge, and Lu Dongbing happily walked back to his dream. And the whole time, Hui An was there watching him. In fact, Hui An saw him. His body came up to do this whole thing, but he was in such a deep trance and sleeping. He didn't know that he was doing it, and Hui An couldn't wake him up. So finally, when he woke up in the morning, Liu Dongbing said, "Oh, I had a dream that I built the bridge." And Hui An said, "You did build a bridge, but Guan Shiying say that you can't use magic to build the bridge." And he said, "Well, I was sleeping. I was asleep. That wasn't me. It was a dream. It was a dream. It wasn't me." So Hui An say, then Guan Shiying, when she was transfigure herself, disguise herself as the maiden, isn't the maiden. So the Guan Shiying shouldn't marry to the young man. And, so the story kind of, their entanglement kind of end here. So what's really, for me, it was really fun and beautiful part is that young man, his name is Wei Tuo, and Guan Shiying, however, didn't waste that dedication of that young man. Instead of physically marry to Wei Tuo, Guan Shiying honored her word by bringing brave Wei Tuo close to her and coronate him as another bodhisattva called Fu Hu Fa Pusa. And so when you see Guan Shiying in the temple, you will always see this really handsome, general-like young man, and he looks like a Jinggang because he carries weapons and has the build of it, but he's actually a bodhisattva. And then he's accompany Guan Shiying for the rest of eternity. So,
Wow.
So that's the story.
I really love this story, how it's very humorous, I kept wanting to even embellish it a little bit, just imagining Liu Dongbing, like the feeling of like that mischievous feeling, he sees what's really going on there, and he decides to egg on this young man and, make things interesting. And then he gets in trouble, but he continues to be incorrigible. And anyway, there's a lot of, just his Han Zhongli, his teacher, being like, okay, you made the mess, you clean it up. So there's this very human drama within the symbolic drama. There's a lot in that story that kind of speaks to me. It's very common that in the Taoist literature, for somebody to meet their teacher in an inn. And I think that a lot of us we're kind of open to new experiences when we're traveling, when we're not in our usual environment that enforces who we usually are. Because who we are is the product of all of our relationships, really, to people, but also to objects, to buildings, to environments. And so when we leave those behind, there's a feeling of possibility. I could be a new person. And so in that very receptive, vulnerable state, he meets Han Zhongli. And then Han Zhongli arranges for him to have this dream in which he accomplishes everything in the dream that he had set out to do. Sometimes I'll kind of do that. I think a lot of people do that. Like, you're like, okay, let me map out my life. If I make this choice, what will I become? And you play it out and you realize maybe that's not what you want, but you can't, because it seems so attractive if you don't really think about it, But if you really think about it and you take seriously what that path holds for you. Like I've done this with being a public intellectual. Like, what if I fulfill like these ambitions, and yeah, I become world famous. Yeah, and I get to speak to the UN or to speak to a joint session of Congress, and I get to do this and I get to do that. Well, okay, that might be very nice, but in the end, I'm still going to be lying on my deathbed someday and reviewing my life. And all of that is in the past now. So unless I was serving something beyond that ambition, my life will feel meaningless. And at that moment, that is all that will be real. So if I can like live out that life in my mind beforehand, including that moment, then I realize I don't need to actually do that. I want to live a life in which I have created things that outlast me, because then my life will not have feel that it was futile. So like that's kind of to what that episode in the story is pointing to. And I could even say more about it, but um, maybe I'll
Can
skip
I?
ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, you say something that that really stands out, like the reflection of wanting to serve something beyond the ambition. Like I remember last episode you mentioned about today, 80% of young people wants, their ambition is to be in service, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes it makes me wonder, like, what ambition is it in the desire of wanting to be in service?
There's probably a lot of mixed things,
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, people might want, admiration from others, respect. Maybe they want to be permitted to love themselves because they're doing something for others. But I think that there's usually something much more authentic
Mm.
operating in those
Do-
situations. But it could be many things altogether.
yeah. And do you have any experiences on how you sort that out?
I think that it becomes clear when you start to fully love and accept yourself, because then you can be honest with yourself. If you don't accept yourself, you can't be honest with yourself. Same thing with
Mhm.
another person. If somebody is judging you, if somebody might punish you, if you confess to the wrong thing, you're going to keep that thing secret. Like your parents, if they say, "Where were you last night?" and you say, "At the library studying," when actually you were at your friend's house, doing who knows what. Um, and you know that they're going to punish you if you tell the truth, you're not going to tell the truth. And so when we punish ourselves for thinking bad thoughts and having bad motives, then we're not going to be honest with ourselves. So we're not going to know what we're actually serving. But then, like to take it a level deeper, where you feel like, okay, yeah, I don't actually love and accept myself unconditionally. What am I going to do about that? Am I just going to try harder and pretend that I do? Yeah, you can try that. But I think that usually people learn this love and respect for themselves when others love and respect them.
Mhm.
And to some degree, we, hopefully get that from our parents or other people who love us. But that was usually imperfect. But sometimes somebody comes into our lives that sees through us very, very deeply and loves us anyway, loves us all the way to the core. And so that's not something that I can say, okay, here's what you do. It's a blessing that can happen, for which we can be grateful. I could also link this, with Christian teaching and maybe other religions too, that speak of forgiveness, speak of, in some form, God seeing you completely. And the result isn't punishment and shaming. The result is that you're loved anyway. And so when people can tune into that, and, for example, really feel the love of Jesus, it's liberating. The struggle to pretend that you're other than you are can end. And that allows a new level of honesty. And the new level of honesty then allows you to align more clearly with true goals that are meaningful in the face of your mortality. Because a lot of what we pursue, if we really understood that we were going to die, wouldn't make sense. And here's actually another piece of the whole Taoist idea of immortality. Immortality in the Taoist, the deepest Taoist understanding, is not the opposite of mortality. It's not that you're going to make sure you don't die. Okay, and there's many ways to look at it, okay? But one way that I want to look at it now is in the sense of creating that which will outlast you. And in fact, everything that we do leaves an imprint on the world. Actually, no matter how we live our lives, we influence the world in ways that outlast us. So the question isn't actually, can you achieve immortality? It is, in what way do you want to be immortal? Because in that sense, we are immortal. We pass, but our imprint remains on the world. Like, you're already immortal. Yeah, so how do you want to be immortal? And that actually also ties into immortality in another sense, which is like kind of a continuity of consciousness. That you have a connection, a personal connection to that which you have imprinted upon the world. And that in Buddhism and Hinduism, that's known as karma, that personal connection to what you have imprinted upon the world. So, yeah, and there's a lot more to Taoist immortality than that, but I think this is a really important piece that comes up, in the context of dreaming your future and really inquiring honestly, is that the future that I want to live? And what is that actually, and how will I feel when I am on my deathbed about my life? Do you want to add anything to that, Patsy, or should we go to the other part of the story?
Yeah, just one thing which also connect to the other part of the story, because when you mentioned about the immortality is an aspect of ourself or more that can continue on beyond our own physical death, reminds me of the young man. He's just an ordinary young man, and because his sincere vow of devotion, he acquired immortality in an instant, while some others had to do lots of practices and being tested over and over again before they can get there. I thought that
Which
was
young man? Are you talking about the one who threw the coin, or
yeah,
yeah,
the
yeah,
young man at Wei Tuo. Yeah,
wait, what? Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I liked the way that you narrated that, because he actually was granted what he said. He said, "I'll be eternally devoted to you." Like he got that, but not as a husband.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm interested in the part about, like, what's really going on there with Yu Dongbing's nonchalance.
What does nonchalant
Like,
mean?
like, just, I'm not going to worry about it. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Um, like, bordering on insolence.
What
You
does
know,
insolent means?
Insolence means like disrespecting authority
Oh,
in
okay.
a very
Yeah,
brazen
yeah.
way. Yeah. Um,
I had a theory. I
yeah.
had a
What
thought.
do you think?
I never thought of it until you just
Mm.
say, I thought that perhaps, you see, Liu Dongbing's personality is to challenge authority or to be, like out
Yeah.
of the mainstream. I thought that perhaps the whole time he knew how he's going to accomplish this, but he wanted to challenge the integrity of Guan Shiying, whether she would accept the outcome, that the fact that it's been accomplished and not how it's accomplished.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he was kind of slippery about it. Like, I mean, was that he did use magic? except his excuse was, well, I didn't know I was doing it, so I didn't use magic. It just happened magically.
Right.
Right?
But a part of him knew that that was going to happen. And also, from right in the beginning, although he knew that he was mischievous, he also didn't want to apologize. I think those are like the highlights of that. He just didn't want to admit his fault. And that's what caused the sort of the audience, the multitude of us watching this story feeling like really excited because he stood up for himself, for his integrity against someone who's much more powerful than him.
Yeah. It's interesting here when you say more powerful than him.
Mm-hmm.
So Guan Shiyin is Guanyin Bodhisattva, which is obviously a figure from Buddhism. But here she appears in a Taoist story. And
the Taoist story is about her, how she became Guan Shiyin.
Yeah, oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
She's a character in Taoism, as is, Confucius, actually. He's not just a Confucian character, just Guanyin is not just a Buddhist character. They incorporate them in as well. But she's different in Taoism than she is in Buddhism. So she's no longer simply like, what power does infinite compassion have? Right? Because that is what she is, the Bodhisattva of infinite compassion.
Right.
Doesn't mean that she can coerce people, give orders. Like, what kind of orders do you give? There's no threat there. There's no hierarchy of that's enforced by discipline. And I wonder, Patsy, in these Taoist stories, what is the character of Guan Shiyin? Is she like associated with infinite compassion, or like what is her character?
Yes, she is associated with infinite compassion, and there's a various version of Guan Shiyin. One of which she, if you pay attention to the figurine that's created of her, one of her is holding a bottle, an empty bottle, and is facing down. They're supposed to be healing water, and oftentimes she has a noble steed, like she's standing on a water dragon, and she is called the South Sea, Nanhai Guanshi, and she saved people from pain and suffering, and she solved problems such as building a bridge to save people from dying, right?
Right. Okay. So one reason why Yu Dongbing might not want to disobey Guan Shiyin is that he knows that everything about her is to save people from suffering. So that if he ignores her commands, then he's going to suffer.
Yeah,
it's not that she's going to punish him, but like when she says that you should do something, that that's coming from infinite compassion. And so it's kind of like, and I'm really maybe like, adding this to the story. It may not be there, but the way I'm seeing it is she's basically saying to him, if you want to avoid a lot of suffering, you better build that bridge.
Yeah, totally. It's you are not adding to it. You are eluding the hidden antidote very well, because I've never seen actually Guan Shiyin ever punish someone.
Right.
The punishment kind of is built in to people's promises. Like at one point, back at when we were talking about Monkey King, when the Monkey King was under the mountain for 500 years, Guan Shiyin was the one that came to release him by having him vow to promise on accompany Tang Shanzhang to the west. So that's how journey to the west happens. So she came, she negotiated or something and allowed the person to choose to fulfill the promise.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Should we
Yeah, go. Yeah, please continue. I love hearing you elucidate your insights from those stories.
there's many little significant details, like the fact that Wei Tuo has just one coin, and it's his only coin, and he is already making a gesture of his total devotion. It's not like I have a bunch of coins and I'm just going to try one. It's kind of all or nothing. And that is maybe what allows Liu Dongbing to essentially mess with the roll of the dice, and guide the coin. Because that coin becomes sacred as soon as he devotes it to that which is sacred. Do we ever have moments in life where we're really asked, like these all or nothing moments, where a halfway commitment or a 3/4 commitment isn't going to achieve the result? You have to commit everything. You have to risk everything. What would you do that for? And, of course, there are many things that are not worth risking everything for. But when we do have that moment in life, that's a real gift and a real defining choice. Not all of us are blessed with those obvious moments. In another sense, every moment is like that. We're always choosing what we serve, but there are certain moments that make it really obvious. And those are a gift that is inserted into our destiny, into our path of fortune. That's one of the shining moments in that story that lands in me. That moment where the young man has to decide whether to commit that his only coin. And Liu Dongbing says whether it reaches its target or not, it's not really up to you. All you can do is throw it and trust divine fate. And when we have these moments, we have no guarantee of success. But on some level, we know we have to try and let go. There's also an aspect of letting go, by throwing it. It's no longer in his pocket. He has sent it into the mystery with some encouragement.
There's one little detail I forgot to mention. I wonder if it's so when Guan Shiyin revealed herself, Wei Tuo was so frightened. He thought that he has offended Guan Shiyin. He was so frightened. He was like running away, and then Liu Dongbing pulled him back. Say, no, 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 don't go away. You were talking about Guan Shiyin, yeah, she's gonna honor. And then he said, no, 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 I don't want that anymore.
I see. I imagine him, Liu Dongbing saying, I'm the one who's in trouble, not you.
Yeah.
And then she goes up to heavens, and then Liu Dongbing is like, okay, when's it going to happen? And then her emissary shows up and summons him to the principal's office. It's very funny.
It's always been perplexing to me, watching meaning plays of those stories or storybooks of these Bashan stories, and then we will go to temples to light incense and pray. Right. So I always ask my grandma, like, 为什么要拜这个？为什么要拜那个？ Right? And sometimes my grandma could answer why.
That means, translation is, why do we have to pray and light incense to this one? Why do we have to do it to that one? Like, why are we doing this?
What are they for? Why is this gesture for? Are we praying for something? Do we want their blessing in some ways? And so to me, like some of these more mischievous immortals, I say, do we want to be more like them? What are we doing this for? And my grandma was she would say, 小孩子不要问那么多. I think when she said that, meaning that she doesn't have the answer for us, but she still wants us to do it. 小孩子 that meaning that little children don't ask so many questions.
Yeah, stop asking so many questions, basically.
Yeah.
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 Right. She doesn't know why, but she does know why, actually. She just can't put it into words.
Yeah.
You know, one interesting thing that just came up for me of the tossing of the last coin, you know, like the committing to something. You kind of did that when you turned in a blank paper on your college entrance exam.
Oh, yeah, that's like a point of no return.
Right. Yes,
It
it's a
was
point of no return.
very scary, actually. I remember having a sense of dilemma.
Because you don't get to take the test again, right?
No, you don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
You get
really
sent to factory, or you just get distributed into the society to do all sorts of labor work instead of
right.
Selling in other ways. But in my heart, I knew there was like very subtle. I knew there was something for me, but I couldn't articulate it. I knew that lifelong learning is my destiny, because I remember so happy when I was a little child learning, and looking into the unknown. And at some point, I lost my happiness. I became a very unhappy woman and adult, until like in my 20s. I was telling someone, I said, wow, I realized what makes me happy. What makes me happy is the unpredictability and unknown of the world. And where can I get that? Oh, I can get that through having a sort of like learner's mind, a child's mind, a beginner's mind, and look into everything with curiosity. And that moment rekindled my happiness.
Yeah. And then the world stays fresh as it is for a child.
Yes.
And you stay, in a certain sense, young and alive, in a certain sense, immortal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's, I want to, we should probably wrap it up.
Okay.
Should we contemplate some of the images?
Yes, I would love to.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so here we have Liu Dongbing. He's met Han Zhongli. He's had that dream in which he has fulfilled everything that he's already in his dream fulfilled everything that he set out to accomplish. Yet here he still is in the examination room, and his heart just isn't in it. He just can't make himself do it. I think we're all familiar with that feeling of going through the motions, not really wanting the rewards that have been promised, seeing through those. Yet here we still are. So whether we actually walk out or just kind of internally walk out, withdrawing our full participation, we do walk out. It's a moment like the tossing of the coin, like the turning in of the blank test paper, the point of no return. Maybe we can feel that point coming up. Maybe it's already happened. Maybe you're on the verge of it. But there's that point where it's not just internal anymore, where you actually do something that is irrevocable. And you're in the unknown. Like that coin. It's been thrown, and or you've left that job, you've walked out of that relationship, you've turned in your blank test paper, and there is no guarantee. You are in new territory. You are trusting the hand of God. Maybe you've had this happen before. It's not only just once that this can happen in a lifetime. Maybe it didn't seem like you were guided, but in the end, you realize that you were, and that you did land where you were meant to land. And that your wish, the wish that brought you out of those inherited ambitions, of those false ambitions, the wish to serve, to devote, is coming true. And whether you've had that experience or you just know what I'm talking about, it is present right now. That moment of release. That moment of, I will trust the hand of God to guide my coin, to guide my life, to guide my path. You are aware of this moment, whether in the past or in the future. Imagine that it is you throwing that coin. Trust it. Imagine that it is you turning in the blank exam paper and walking out. And that it is not an act of defiance or escape. It is an act of devotion. It is an act of truth. Find the place within you that knows that when that moment comes, you will recognize it. Find that place within you that knows yourself as brave. Find the place within you that knows your desire for devotion. That place of purity, like the young man. And in this moment, knowing the truth of that desire, knowing the truth of your courage, knowing the truth that you will recognize the moment, you are, by recognizing all of that, preparing for it. And with gratitude for this moment of preparation, when you feel it kind of lock in, then open your eyes.
Mm. 好，你好厉害呀！
是吗？
也是啊。
乱编的吧？
哦，非常的感谢你。
彼此。
Yeah. I hope the listeners have the patience to stay to this point.
Yeah.
Wow, it's so evocative. I feel a sense of clarity and opening just going through this with you. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your service to the story and to
Thank you, sweetheart.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, thank you everybody for listening to the end. And I guess we'll see you next time. Yeah.
Yeah, see you next time.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.